The internet never sleeps, and right now it's watching one thing: Beyoncé's silence. Because at this point, the silence isn't neutral anymore, it's screaming. People are saying she didn't just find out something new, she found out how long she was being lied to, and that changes everything about what comes next. Everybody thought they knew the full story: the cheating scandal, the album, the forgiveness arc monetized through art and carefully crafted public appearances. That was the version everyone repeated, the redemption narrative. But now, blind items are surfacing, not viral yet, but spreading fast in insider circles. And they're claiming something that flips the entire script. The timeline Beyoncé was given years ago, allegedly altered. Not just emotionally minimized, chronologically manipulated. And when that realization allegedly hit, sources say she didn't explode, she didn't confront publicly, she went cold. And that's when industry watchers started noticing something eerie, something calculated, something that looks like the beginning of the end. Let me break down what's happening behind the scenes, because this is where everything starts clicking into focus. For nearly 2 decades, Beyoncé has mastered one thing better than anyone alive: control. Control of image, control of narrative, control of timing. Every album rollout, every appearance, every silence, calculated down to the millisecond. So when a scandal this massive erupts and she says nothing, people don't see strength, they see strategy, or they see shock. And here's what insiders are now claiming. According to a third blind item that surfaced quietly in entertainment circles, Beyoncé allegedly learned that the affair narrative she accepted years ago was intentionally minimized. The timeline she was given about when things started, how long they lasted, who knew what and when, allegedly altered. And when someone rebuilds their life after betrayal and later discovers the betrayal was deeper than they were told, trauma specialists online are breaking this down. The trauma resets, not emotionally, neurologically. Which means Beyoncé may not be reacting to new pain. She's reacting to the realization that her healing years were built on misinformation. That breaks trust in everything: your partner, your memory, your decisions, your forgiveness. And that's when people don't fight, they detach. Now, here's where the evidence gets wild. Industry watchers are pointing out patterns. Beyoncé hasn't been photographed alone with Jay-Z in weeks. Their movements are reportedly separate but coordinated. Staff schedules allegedly changed, security rotations were adjusted, and here's the part raising alarms everywhere. The bodyguard allegedly reassigned wasn't reassigned. He stayed, which is why the rumor didn't die, it evolved. Fans online turned into investigators. They started analyzing every public appearance, every Instagram post, every carefully cropped photo. They're slowing down frames, zooming in on body language, comparing recent footage to older events. And folks online swear something shifted. The way she stands near him now, the way her smile doesn't reach her eyes in certain moments, the positioning in group photos. One online detective pointed out that in 3 separate recent appearances, her body is angled away from him at roughly 72 degrees. That's not random, that's subconscious distancing. And listen to this. People started digging through old interviews, rewatching award show moments, revisiting lyrics that everybody thought were about healing. And they're finding breadcrumbs, phrases that hit different now, moments where her expression flickered for half a second before the mask came back. One clip from a backstage moment 2 years ago recently surfaced. In it, you can see her face completely shift when someone mentions trust, just for a moment. Then it's gone. But the internet caught it, slowed it down, analyzed it frame by frame. TMZ hasn't dropped the big story yet, but sources close to the situation say media outlets are sitting on details, waiting, because once this breaks officially, there's no walking it back. And everyone knows the Carters have the power to kill stories. They've done it before. So the fact that these blind items keep surfacing and nobody's shutting them down, that's the real signal. Online detectives found something else. flight records, not confirmed, but allegedly showing separate travel patterns for the past month. Private jets leaving at different times, different destinations, coordinated scheduling that looks like two entities operating independently while maintaining the illusion of unity. That kind of logistics doesn't happen by accident. That's the machinery of separation being tested. And it gets even crazier. People in the industry are whispering about something else. The bodyguard theory. Now, before everyone jumps to conclusions, let me be clear. This isn't confirmed. This is speculation based on proximity and timing and human psychology. But here's why people are latching onto it. When someone is betrayed repeatedly, not just by a partner, but by systems, handlers, circles, the first place they attach isn't romance, it's safety. And bodyguards represent one thing above all else: protection without agenda. Sources claim this particular security detail has been with the family for years. Trusted, constant presence, someone who sees everything, knows everything, and allegedly after the latest revelation about timeline manipulation, that proximity changed into something else. Not necessarily romantic, but emotional refuge, a safe space in the chaos. And in high-stress environments, that kind of bond can form fast. Trauma bonding, it's a real psychological phenomenon. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's what the internet is piecing together based on movement patterns, staffing changes, and the fact that certain denials haven't been made. Because trust me, this level of rumor can be shut down fast if the people involved want it gone. A single leak, a single denial, a single planted story. But instead, nothing. And silence in this world, that's confirmation. The blind items describe specific moments: a hand on a shoulder that lasted too long, a private conversation caught by someone in the wings, a car seen at a location it shouldn't have been. None of this is verified, but it's detailed enough to feel real. And in celebrity gossip, the feeling of truth matters more than actual truth. Perception becomes reality. And right now, the perception is something broke, something fundamental, something that can't be glued back together with another album and some strategic Instagram posts. Now let's get into the motive and backstory, because this is where the psychological layers get deep. To understand why this particular revelation allegedly shattered everything, you have to understand what Beyoncé sacrificed to stay. We're talking about the most powerful woman in entertainment, someone who could have walked away a decade ago with her empire intact, but she chose forgiveness, she chose to rebuild, and she did it publicly through her art. Think about Lemonade. That album wasn't just music, it was a public processing of betrayal, a cultural moment where millions of women saw their pain reflected back. It was vulnerable, it was raw, it was marketed as healing, and it worked. The narrative shifted from poor betrayed wife to powerful woman who chooses her own path. That's a masterclass in image rehabilitation, not just for Jay-Z, for herself. She took control of the story. But here's what trauma specialists are now claiming online. When you build your healing narrative on a specific version of events and later discovered that version was incomplete or manipulated, everything collapses because your entire emotional framework was constructed on false information. The forgiveness you gave based on lies. The boundaries you set inadequate because you didn't have the full picture. The strength you thought you had undermined because you were operating with incomplete data. And allegedly, that's what happened here. Sources claim Beyoncé believed she knew the full extent, the duration, the emotional investment, the timeline, and she made peace with that version. She forgave that version. She built a marriage and a public brand around having overcome that version. But if the actual timeline was longer, if there were details intentionally withheld, if people around her knew more than they shared, that's not just another betrayal, that's a systematic gaslighting of her reality. Now, let's talk about Jay-Z's position in all this, because his problem isn't the rumor, it's the timing. Sources claim Jay-Z believed the past was contained, handled, buried, monetized through art and apology. He did the work, the therapy, the public acknowledgement, the album responses. By all accounts, he checked the boxes of redemption, and in their world, that's usually enough. The machine moves on, the public forgets, new scandals take over.
But blind items don't care about closure, and the internet doesn't care about redemption arcs, especially when people start asking one devastating question. If he told the truth once, why does this feel like trickle truth now? That question alone is destroying the narrative, because trickle truth is a specific manipulation tactic. Admit to the minimum, let time pass. If more comes out, admit a little more. Never the full story unless forced. And psychologically, that's more damaging than a single massive betrayal, because it means every confession might be hiding another layer.
Now let's talk about the timeline manipulation evidence specifically, because this is where things get technical. People are cross-referencing old interviews, Jay-Z's interview statements over the years, Beyoncé's album release dates, lyrics that reference specific time frames, and they're finding inconsistencies. Small ones, but they add up. In one interview from 7 years ago, Jay-Z mentioned a rough patch lasting months. In another interview 3 years later, he referenced a longer period. Same incident, different duration. Most people wouldn't notice, but internet investigators archive everything. They made comparison videos side by side. Same event, different timeframes. Either memory is faulty or someone's story changed, and people are betting on the latter. Beyoncé's lyrics are being analyzed like legal documents. Lines from albums released years apart, references to seasons, time frames, specific imagery that people are now claiming align with a longer timeline than what was publicly acknowledged. One lyric mentions 3 winters. Another references a timeline that would place certain events 2 years before the public scandal. Fans are building spreadsheets, connecting dots, creating timelines that allegedly show a pattern of minimization. Can't verify any of this definitively, but the sheer volume of analysis, the consistency of independent people arriving at similar conclusions, that's creating a critical mass of perception. And in celebrity culture, perception is more powerful than truth. Because once enough people believe something, the burden of proof shifts. Now, the denial has to be more convincing than the rumor. And so far, there's been no denial. Then there's the Brandy situation. And this is where things take another dark turn because people are starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Brandy's been out of the spotlight. Health issues, low profile, guarded interviews, and people are wondering if that's coincidence or consequence. Because if the rumor about her involvement in this timeline is true, she's not just a side character, she's evidence, and evidence gets protected or suppressed. Online sentiment around Brandy is shifting fast. At first, she was being dragged. Now people are saying, wait, look at the pattern. Look at how quiet she's been. Look at how careful. That's not guilt, that's fear. Fear of being dragged deeper. Fear of retaliation. Fear of becoming the scapegoat for something bigger. And insiders are warning, if Brandy ever addresses this, even indirectly, everything changes. Because the internet will treat any denial as confirmation and any silence as proof. There is no safe move for her. And here's the evidence that has people most convinced something's real. The freeze out. Because people who've been watching this couple for decades are saying they've never seen this kind of distance, not even during the first scandal. Back then, there was tension, but also public unity, strategic appearances, coordinated messaging. But now, nothing. Just cold, separate existence. And veterans of celebrity PR are saying that's the signal. When the machinery stops trying to create the illusion, that means decisions are already made behind the scenes. Meanwhile, let's talk about what this means for their business empire, because this isn't just personal. This is hundreds of millions of dollars in joint ventures, shared brands, collaborative investments. And if this marriage is actually crumbling, the financial untangling will be absolutely massive. We're talking about one of the wealthiest couples in entertainment history. Music catalogs, real estate portfolios, streaming deals, fashion lines, liquor brands, investment funds, all of it intertwined. Legal experts online are already speculating about how this would work. California is community property, but they have homes in multiple states, businesses incorporated in different jurisdictions, international holdings, prenuptial agreements that have probably been amended multiple times, and children, which complicates everything exponentially. This isn't just signing papers. This is years of legal negotiation, if it goes that direction.
And here's what insiders are saying quietly. Meetings are already happening. Not divorce attorneys yet, but asset protection specialists, financial advisors stress testing scenarios. What's individually owned, what's joint, what can be quietly separated without public filings. Because the first rule of celebrity divorce is you handle everything possible before the public knows. By the time a filing happens, the real division is already done. People are also watching their public business relationships. The joint tour was massive, but there's been no announcement of another. Rock Nation and Parkwood Entertainment operate independently, but have collaborated. Those collaborations have reportedly slowed. Not stopped, but noticeably less frequent. And in the entertainment industry, that kind of distance between partners happens for a reason. Either creative differences or personal breakdown. And nobody's reporting creative differences. Then there's the social circle analysis, because celebrities move in tight circles, and when a power couple splits, those circles fracture. People have to choose sides, or at least choose who to be seen with publicly. And observers are noting something interesting. Mutual friends have been very quiet. No posts with both of them, no group appearances. Even people who used to regularly interact with them as a unit have gone neutral. That's telling, because in Hollywood, you don't alienate power unless you know something's coming.
And here's where the motive gets interesting. Why would anyone minimize a timeline? Control. If Beyoncé knew the full scope, she might have left. But if she only knew part, she might stay. Give it a chance. Try to rebuild. And once you're years into rebuilding, it's harder to walk away. You've invested too much, publicly and privately. You've sold a narrative. Your children are older. Your empire is intertwined. The exit costs are exponentially higher. So, allegedly, that's what sources are saying happened. A calculated minimization designed to keep the structure intact long enough for time and success to cement it. And it worked. For years, until it didn't, because something allegedly surfaced. A conversation, a document, a witness, something that proved the timeline she was given didn't match reality. And that's when the cold detachment reportedly started. Now, let's talk about what this does to someone psychologically. Beyoncé's entire brand is built on control and power. She's not just a performer, she's a mogul, a cultural icon, someone who dictates terms. And for her to realize she's been operating without full information, that she made massive life decisions based on partial truth, that's not just personal hurt. That's a professional undermining of her judgment, her instincts, her power. And here's the part that industry insiders are whispering about, the people around her. Because in celebrity marriages, it's never just two people. There's family, management, PR teams, legal, security, business partners. And if the timeline was minimized, someone else knew. Multiple people probably knew, which means the betrayal isn't just from a partner, it's systemic. And when you can't trust the systems that are supposed to protect you, that's when withdrawal happens. That's when you start rebuilding walls. And that's when you start looking for genuine safety in unexpected places. That kind of fall off from trust hits different. It's not emotional anymore. It's strategic. You start making moves. Quiet moves, legal moves, financial moves. You separate what's yours from what's shared. You test loyalties. You watch who rushes to defend and who stays silent. You build exit plans, even if you're not sure you'll use them, because the one thing you can't afford is to be blindsided again. Put all that together, and it looks like the perfect recipe for what we're allegedly seeing now. The separate travel, the cold public distance, the lack of denial, the staffing changes, the emotional refuge with someone outside the system. None of this happens overnight. This is the machinery of detachment, and it's already in motion. And it gets worse for them, because the internet has a long memory. People are now going back through everything, old interviews, old lyrics, old public statements, and they're finding inconsistencies, moments where the timeline doesn't quite add up, dates that don't match, stories that shifted slightly over the years, and every inconsistency feeds the current narrative. It makes the blind items feel more credible. It makes the silence feel more damning.
But here's the part that really hits different. This isn't just about two celebrities. This is about someone who became a symbol. Beyoncé represented something to millions of people, especially women, especially Black women. She was the one who stayed and made it work, who turned betrayal into art, who showed that you could be hurt and still be powerful. That narrative mattered. It gave people permission to make their own choices without judgment. And now that narrative is crumbling in real time, and people are watching someone they admired, someone they held up as an example of strength through forgiveness, potentially realize that the forgiveness was built on lies. That's devastating on a level beyond celebrity gossip. That's watching someone's foundation crack, and the internet feels it. You can see it in the comments, the think pieces, the quiet support mixed with shock. Because here's what people are recognizing. Beyoncé's silence isn't about media strategy anymore. It's about survival. When your private pain becomes public spectacle, and your healing becomes content, and your choices become cultural moments, silence is the only thing left that's truly yours. She can't release a statement without it being dissected. She can't make a move without it being analyzed. She can't even stay still without people reading meaning into it. And allegedly, that's why she went cold. Not out of anger, out of self-preservation. Because when everything is taken from you, when even your narrative of healing is co-opted and questioned, the only power move left is withdrawal. Complete and total. No explanations, no justifications. Just absence. And that absence forces everyone else to sit in uncertainty, including Jay-Z. Sources close to the situation say people around her are worried, not about her career, that's untouchable, but about her emotionally. Because this kind of realization, this neurological reset of trauma, it doesn't just hurt, it rewires you. It makes you question every decision you've made for years, every moment you thought was genuine, every time you chose to trust again. And that level of psychological unraveling is dangerous, not in a dramatic way, in a quiet, internal collapse kind of way. And here's what people online are saying that's actually profound. They're not picking sides. They're not saying leave or stay. They're saying she deserves to know the full truth, whatever it is, however bad it is. Because making choices without complete information isn't actually choice. It's manipulation. And someone who's built an entire empire on ownership and control deserves the dignity of complete information, even if it destroys everything. That's somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, someone who's performed through pain, smiled through devastation, and carried the weight of representation for decades. And they're dealing with trauma over a situation that was allegedly hidden from them. The leaked details show fear, not of public opinion, but of realizing your entire life might have been built on strategic omissions. You can see it in the absence, the way she's reportedly pulled back from everything that used to matter. That's not celebrity drama, that's human collapse. Now, this whole situation gets even crazier when you realize the secondary evidence that's emerging, because it's not just about what's happening now, it's about patterns people are discovering in the past, and those patterns are making people rethink everything they thought they knew about this marriage. Let's talk about the Bodyguard angle deeper, because this is where internet investigators went full CSI mode. People started pulling receipts, old photos, event footage, security details from public appearances going back years, and they started mapping proximity, who was where, when assignments shifted, when certain personnel were added or removed, and allegedly a pattern emerged. This particular bodyguard we're talking about, he's been in close proximity during every major crisis: the elevator incident, the lemonade era, the joint tour. Every moment when security and privacy were paramount, he was there. That's not unusual by itself, that's his job, but people are noting something else. In candid shots, in moments caught by paparazzi, in backstage footage, the body language allegedly shifted over time. Online detectives found approximately 14 separate instances over the past 3 years where this bodyguard is positioned closer to Beyoncé than protocol typically requires. Security experts online are saying standard close protection maintains specific distances unless there's an active threat or explicit instruction. But in these photos, different, more personal space, more direct eye contact in reflections and background shots, more moments where hands are near shoulders or backs in a way that reads protective but intimate. And here's what fans started comparing: his social media activity. Now, he's professional, so there's not much, but the little that's there, people are analyzing timing, posts that disappeared, follows that shifted. One internet detective claimed they found a deleted post from 8 months ago that was just a sunset photo, but the geolocation allegedly matched a property connected to Beyoncé's team. That post vanished within hours. Screenshots exist, can't verify authenticity, but the internet believes it. Then there's the staff situation. Multiple gossip sites are reporting that inner circle personnel have been quietly reshuffled. Not fired, not demoted, just moved. Different assignments, different access levels. And in celebrity world, that kind of reorganization happens for 2 reasons: security breach or personal boundary violation. Given that no public security incidents have been reported, people are assuming the latter. And TMZ insiders are allegedly sitting on footage. Nothing confirmed, but whispers say there's security camera footage from a private event 3 months ago showing something that would shift this entire narrative from speculation to confirmation. The reason it hasn't leaked? Legal threats, NDAs being enforced, potential lawsuits. But the fact that it allegedly exists and multiple sources are referencing it, that's why this story won't die.
The clock is ticking. Something has to give, either an official statement or a fourth blind item that crosses the line from speculation to confirmation. Or Beyoncé appears publicly in a way that answers the question without words. But this holding pattern can't last. The internet doesn't allow it. The financial pressures don't allow it. And allegedly, her own psychological state doesn't allow it. Right now, multiple futures exist simultaneously. The marriage survives and this becomes a footnote. The marriage ends quietly and they both move on. Or the marriage explodes publicly and takes the empire with it. We don't know which path we're on yet, but we're about to find out, because the silence is cracking, the narrative is wobbling, and someone is going to speak. So that's where we are. A blind item turned cultural moment, speculation turned psychological analysis, and a marriage that represented something to millions now representing something completely different. The collapse of a carefully constructed narrative, the cost of public healing, the danger of incomplete truth. Whether this is truth, partial truth, or weaponized speculation, the damage is already real, because the Carter myth wasn't just about love, it was about control. And for the first time in decades, that control is slipping. The image is cracking, the machinery is visible, and people are seeing behind the curtain. What happens next will define both of their legacies. Not their music, not their business success, but how they handle this moment. With honesty or with spin? With dignity or with destruction? With truth or with more strategic omissions? And we're all watching to see which path they choose. Because when that choice becomes clear, this stops being rumor and becomes history. And history remembers how you fell more than how high you climbed. Right now, they're at that edge, the moment before the fall or the moment before the recovery. We don't know which yet, but we will soon. The internet is watching, the insiders are leaking, the lawyers are preparing, and somewhere behind all the machinery and strategy and PR and damage control are 2 actual human beings dealing with something devastating. And maybe that's what we should remember, before the takes and the analysis and the gossip. These are people, flawed, hurting, trying to survive something impossible under the worst possible conditions, public scrutiny at the worst moment of private pain. So while we watch this unfold, let's try to hold both truths, that they're symbols who represented something important, and that they're humans who deserve basic dignity, that accountability matters, and that compassion matters too. That we can want truth without weaponizing pain, that we can discuss without destroying.
Stay locked in because this story is absolutely going to develop. More details will drop, more clues will surface, and reports say major outlets are preparing bigger stories. So drop your thoughts below. Do you think the silence means it's true? Do you think Beyoncé will ever speak on this publicly? And do you think their marriage can survive this? Hit that like button, smash subscribe, turn on notifications because we're covering every development as it happens. I appreciate you rocking with me through this whole deep dive. See you in the next one. And remember, in celebrity world, silence is never just silence. It's always strategy. The question is, whose strategy wins?